Hello and welcome to grammar class. Today's lesson is free indirect speech and silent speech. But first off, let me explain the difference between the direct speech and the indirect speech. Well, as you know, when the speaker's statement is quoted or reported in his exact words or by repeating them, it's called the direct or quoted speech. On the other hand, if a person's speech or statement is reported not in his own words but in the words of the reporter or narrator, it's called the indirect or reported speech. For example, John said, "I am very happy today." Here the speaker John's statement, "I am very happy," is reported in his exact words under quotation marks. So, "I am very happy today" within quotation marks is called the direct or quoted speech. However, in the next sentence, John said that he was very happy that day. The speaker's statement has been reported not in his own words but in the words of the reporter. Remember, this indirect reporting does not change the content of the statement. This mode or style of reporting is known as the indirect or the reported speech. In both these sentences, John said is the main clause known as the reporting clause, while both the direct speech, "I am very happy today," and the indirect speech, "he was very happy that day," are the subordinate clauses of these sentences respectively. So now that we have understood the direct and the indirect narrations, what about the free indirect speech or the free indirect discourse? But before I explain the concept of the free indirect speech in English, let me tell you that it's most commonly used in fiction, literature, or prose writing. So, what exactly is the free indirect speech or discourse? How is it different from the normal indirect speech in English? Now, try to understand the key features of the free indirect speech one by one. First, in free indirect speech, the thoughts and feelings of a character, not a spoken statement of his, are reported in the voice of the narrator or the author. In other words, free indirect speech is when a certain fictional character speaks through the voice of the third person narrator or author. If you find it difficult to understand the concept, don't worry. I'm going to give you many examples to understand it better. Another important thing about the free indirect speech is that there is no reporting clause like "he said," "she asked," "they wondered," etc. before or after the free indirect speech. So the absence of a reporting clause or reporting verb also helps us to identify the free indirect speech. Also remember that the free indirect speech is mostly used for interrogative or exclamatory sentences. Now see a couple of examples of free indirect speech used in prose. John saw that not only his teachers but even his best friends were angry with him. He felt quite upset and perplexed. Why was everyone blaming him? How unfair it was! In this excerpt, the last two sentences, "why was everyone blaming him" and "how unfair it was," are John's internal thoughts arising from the situation he was in. So here we see that the character John's thoughts are voiced by the third person narrator or author. In other words, the thoughts belong to John, but the voice is lent by the writer. We see that in free indirect speech, interrogative and exclamatory sentences can be used, but in normal indirect speech, they cannot be used. We also see that there is no reporting clause before or after the free indirect speech here. Now let's read the second example. She sensed that someone was following her. The street was almost deserted, as a slight drizzle had just begun. Who could the man be? What did he want from her? But she could not bring herself to turn around and look back. In this excerpt, there is a female character, and the interrogative sentences, who could the man be and what did he want from her, are her thoughts. But she does not express her thoughts in her own voice here. We see that her thoughts are expressed in the voice of the author or the writer. So these two interrogative sentences are in free indirect speech. And you can also see that there is no reporting clause like she asked herself or she said to herself before or after these sentences. Now let's compare the normal indirect speech and the free indirect speech. Her parents always took her brother's side. She wondered if she was not their child too. In this case, the second sentence, she wondered if she was not their child too, is an example of the normal indirect speech. Why? Because here we have the reporting clause, she wondered, and the subordinate clause, she was not their child too, after the conjunction if. Now look at the second example. Her parents always took her brother's side. Was she not their child too? Now in this mode of speech, we notice that there is no reporting verb here. And the interrogative sentence, was she not their child too, is not a subordinate clause. Obviously, this is an example of the free indirect speech. In this way, we understand that the free indirect speech denotes the internal thinking of a fictional character expressed not in his or her own voice, but in the voice of the author or the writer. Up next is the silent speech in English grammar. Well, the phrase silent speech means the internal or silent talking of a person with himself or herself. So in English grammar, the silent speech means the direct quotation or reporting of this internal or silent talking of a character with himself or herself. The silent speech is similar to the direct or quoted speech. Just like the direct speech, the reporting clause and a comma are used before or after the silent speech also. The difference is that while the direct speech denotes a spoken statement, the silent speech expresses internal thinking. However, do remember that quotation marks may or may not be used for the silent speech. Now see some examples of the silent speech on your screen. In the first sentence, the reporting clause, I cursed myself, shows my internal or silent thinking. So the exclamatory sentence, what a fool I have been, is my inner thought. And within the inverted commas, this is an example of the silent speech. In the second sentence also, the reporting verb thought indicates internal thinking. Hence the quoted sentence, this is my last chance to escape from here, is also an example of the silent speech. In the next example, the speaker silently or mentally exclaims, what a mean fellow he is. He does not utter or speak these words. So this too is silent speech. But like I said earlier, the silent speech is not always quoted. The reporting verb wandered in the fourth sentence shows that I wandered mentally or silently. So the interrogative sentence, can they recognize me, is silent speech, though not put within inverted commas. In the last sentence, the reporting verb is was thinking. So the interrogative sentence, how can he beat me in the race, is also in silent speech, though inverted commas are not used here. That's the end of today's class. Hopefully you liked the video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, and do not forget to click the notification bell for many more such useful grammar videos. Thanks for watching the video.